Hi, I'm Clint Parsons, and I'm with the Domain Group and DomainRealty.com. I'd like to welcome you to Step 8, which is the final step of my buyer process, and thank you for joining me. At this stage, we have negotiated your offer and you are fully under contract. In this step, my job is to manage the moving parts so your contract closes on time with the least amount of drama and surprises. And here's an important disclaimer. In this video, I will discuss a number of contractual provisions and legal concepts. It is important for me to tell you that I am not an attorney. The legal provisions and concepts discussed in this video are from my years of training as a real estate agent. For specific guidance on the application of these concepts to your particular situation, please seek the advice of a licensed Florida real estate attorney. Like all of the videos in this series, I've prepared a slideshow for you that I hope will make the presentation of this material more enjoyable and understandable. So let's get started. Step 8 is entitled Transaction Management. This step is divided into the following parts: understanding community organizations and tax districts, understanding contracts, the due diligence phase and contingencies, pre-closing activities, the closing, and post-closing activities. I will begin my discussion on community organizations and tax districts. Depending on your lifestyle choices or stated preferences, you may select homes to view that are located in homeowners associations, also known as HOAs, condominium associations, community development districts, also known as CDDs, and or municipal service tax units, also known as MSTUs. A homeowners association is an organization in a subdivision, planned community, or condominium that makes and enforces rules for the properties within its jurisdiction. The purchase of the property automatically makes the homeowner a member of the HOA, and dues are required. The benefits of living in an HOA include the maintenance of common elements within the community, the control of any proposed architectural changes of any of the properties, and the uniform enforcement of rules within the HOA. Some people believe that this enhances and maintains individual property values. Other people dislike HOAs because they want to have more control over their own property and what they want to do. Based on your preferences, I will recommend areas that are controlled by HOAs or areas that are free of these types of deed restrictions. Per Florida state law, if you purchase in an HOA, the contract is required to have a homeowners association disclosure that states the amount and timing of the current HOA fees. This must be signed by all parties before the contract becomes effective. HOA documents typically include the Declaration of Restrictive Covenants, the Articles of Incorporation, the bylaws, the rules and regulations, and the most recent year-end financial information. If you desire, there is an addendum that can be attached to the standard contract that allows for your approval of these documents as part of your due diligence process. This is an option with HOAs, but this document review is automatically incorporated into the contract with condominium associations per Florida state law. A condominium association is an association of unit owners in a condominium building. The association elects a board of directors which manages the maintenance and repair of common areas, handles disputes among unit owners, enforces rules and regulations, and collects condominium fees. The advantages and disadvantages of living in a condominium association are similar to that of living in an HOA. As such, the benefits of living in a condominium association include the maintenance of common elements within the condominium, control of any proposed architectural changes of any of the individual condominium units, as well as the uniform enforcement of rules within the condominium. There is also a loss of individual control living in a condominium association. However, there is one important difference between HOAs and condominium associations. If you live in a condominium building, there will certainly be a condominium association. However, if you live in a single-family home, you can choose between an HOA or a non-HOA area. Per Florida law, you have a right to review and approve the condominium documents. During the review period, the buyer can terminate the contract at any time. However, this right ceases upon the expiration of the review period. Please note that I will cover the timing of the specific documents related to this review in the due diligence portion of this video. A community development district is a local special purpose government framework authorized by the Florida Statutes. Basically, developers use CDDs to fund infrastructure to the community, which may include land grading, roads, bridges, water retention areas, expansion of utilities, landscaping, etc. The financial instruments used are typically bonds that are sold in the markets, and the proceeds are used to fund the improvements. The payback to the bondholders is over an extended period, often 20 to 30 years, and as buyers purchase homes in the CDD finance subdivision, they assume a portion of the payback obligation. All properties within a CDD require an addendum to the contract stating the terms of the CDD obligation being assumed by the buyer. Owners pay their portion on an annual basis as part of their real estate tax bill, or they may accelerate the payback by paying the principal balance all at one time. However, it's important to know that even after the principal is paid or the bonds are retired, there is still an annual operating and maintenance expense associated with the CDD for ongoing maintenance to the common areas of the subdivision. Due to the cost component, buyers sometimes refer to or think of the CDD as a second HOA fee. A municipal service taxing unit is a funding mechanism for community members to create a special taxing district to make improvements to their neighborhood and or their community area. This tax district must be approved by the Board of County Commissioners. Additional taxes are then imposed on the owners within these communities to pay for the improvements created by the MSTU. Like CDDs, any property with an MSTU requires an addendum to the contract stating the terms of the MSTU obligation being assumed by the buyer. Now we will move on to contracts. In this part, we cover the types of contracts, real and personal property, the closing agent, the financing provision, the effective date of the contract, and typical closing timeframes. We will start with types of contracts. In our area of Southwest Florida, the two primary contracts used in real estate transactions include the Naples Area Board of Realtor contracts, which are known as NABOR, and the Florida Association of Realtors / Florida Bar Association contracts, which are known as FARBAR. In Collier County, the NABOR contracts are the most commonly used, and in areas outside of Collier County, the FARBAR contracts are the most common. However, either set can be used, and both are legally binding throughout the state of Florida. Both the NABOR and the FARBAR contract forms have specific contracts for the purchase of improved residential property as well as vacant land. With regard to improved residential property, both NABOR and FARBAR have two primary contract vehicles, the standard contract and the as-is contract. Although the NABOR and FARBAR contracts differ in their various legal aspects, the standard contract includes the right for inspections on behalf of the buyer and methods by which the buyer and the seller can resolve disputes over the repairs of defective items discovered during the inspection process. The as-is contracts provide the buyer with an inspection period during which the buyer can decide to accept the property on an as-is basis or to terminate the contract. In addition to the standard and as-is contracts, NABOR and FARBAR have numerous related addenda, amendments, and supplemental documents that correspond to each set. Many of these are designed to address different scenarios that occur at the time a contract is written and different situations that evolve during the contractual process. Now we will discuss real versus personal property. Your purchase will most likely involve both real and personal property. Whether you use the NABOR or the FARBAR contracts, it will specifically define what is included as to real and personal property. Your purchase may also involve other personal property offered by the seller. I will inform you if the residence is offered as partially furnished, or turnkey. If items will be sold separately, then these items will be advertised as negotiable. Now we will discuss the closing agent and title insurance. At the time of writing a contract, you will select an escrow agent who will hold your funds. This is required per Florida law. Your escrow agent may also be your closing agent, which is either a title company or a real estate attorney. The closing agent will collect your funds and prepare all of the closing documents and the closing statement. They also provide other essential services such as title and lien searches and searches for unclosed building permits. As a general rule, a title company will perform the closing services for a lower fee, but legal services are not part of their package. An attorney will provide all the closing services of a title company and will also offer legal services as well. If you engage a title company and you require legal services for any reason, you may need to procure an attorney. This may cause overlap in services and a final fee that is higher than if you had selected a real estate attorney to begin with. Ultimately, it's your decision. Some people feel strongly that they must use an attorney, while others want to reduce their closing costs and proceed with a title company. I have a list of preferred service providers that I provide to my customers. This includes real estate attorneys that bundle their fees for closing services that I think are very competitive in this market. In our current market, the majority of transactions are all cash. If you do elect to utilize mortgage financing, I will guide you through the process. Furthermore, I have mortgage lenders who I can certainly recommend to you should you elect to take this route. It is also important to note that mortgage financing typically takes more time to close a transaction, as there are more steps in this process. Furthermore, closings can be potentially delayed if bank financing approvals are not completed on time. Our contracts address this potential time delay associated with financing. The effective date of the contract is the date that the last party signs, and the date upon which it becomes fully executed and agreed upon. This is the date which most subsequent contractual obligations hinge upon. From the effective date, a typical all-cash transaction can be closed in about 30 days. Under this scenario, the HOA or Condominium Association approval is what typically takes the longest time. If you purchase a property outside of an HOA or Condominium Association, a closing can take place more quickly. Furthermore, if the HOA or Condominium Association can respond with your approval quickly, then we can close that much faster. Finance deals take about 45 days and may need to be extended if the lender requires more documents or high levels of approval within their own organizations. Now we move on to the due diligence phase and contingencies. In this part, we will cover the document review period, the building inspection, the financing contingency, other contingencies, and the close of contingencies. We will start with the document review period. The following pertains to if you are buying in a homeowners association, condominium association, community development district, and/or municipal service tax unit. If you buy in a condominium association per Florida state law, the buyer has a right to review and approve the condominium documents. This review period is 3 business days for existing condominiums, which are resales, and 15 business days for new condominiums, which are purchases from the developer. After a fully executed contract, the review period commences when the buyer signs a form that acknowledges receipt of all the documents. These documents include the Declaration of Condominium, the Articles of Incorporation, the bylaws, the rules and regulations, the most recent year-end financial information, the question and answer sheet, also known as the frequently asked questions, and the governance form. During the review period, the buyer can terminate the contract at any time. However, this right ceases upon the expiration of the review period. If you buy in an HOA, a CDD, or an MSTU, you will be provided with a disclosure at the time of the contract that spells out the fees associated with these organizations. However, the standard contract does not provide you with an automatic contingency review of the documents associated with these entities unless the contract is amended or modified. Now we move on to building inspections. The deadlines imposed for the building inspections are defined in the contract. Furthermore, the NABOR and FARBAR contracts differ in terms of how defective items are handled in each. Under the terms of a standard contract, the buyer typically has 15 days after the effective date to have a licensed property inspector complete their inspection, who then prepares a report for the buyer. The buyer then selects defective items from the report that they want the seller to repair. Under the NABOR contract, if the seller agrees, the contract remains in full force. But if the seller disagrees on even one item, the buyer has a right to terminate the contract. However, it's usually accepted by the seller or negotiated between the buyer and the seller after the buyer's election. Under the FARBAR contract, there are predetermined maximum amounts called out in the original contract that provide for allowances for correcting deficiencies discovered in this phase. Under the terms of an as-is contract, the buyer typically has 15 days after the effective date to review the property and have it inspected. During this review period, the buyer may terminate for any reason. Following the expiration of the review period, and assuming the buyer is not terminated, the buyer is contractually bound to proceed with the purchase under the remaining terms of the contract. If you've elected to have a financing contingency, then you will make application with a lender shortly after the effective date. There are numerous deadlines and rules that come into play with financing, and because most transactions are all cash, I will not cover them here in detail. However, if you elect to make approval of a mortgage loan a contingency of the contract, I will cover the rules with you prior to you going under contract. There are other contingencies that are part of the standard and as-is contracts that involve issues such as good and marketable title, open building permits, HOA and/or Condominium Association approval, etc. There are also numerous addenda that can be attached to the standard and as-is contracts to address specific needs and situations. I will recommend including one or more of these if your needs warrant it. Once all of the contingencies have been satisfied, the contract proceeds to closing. But there are several things to do before closing. Prior to closing, you will need to procure property insurance, flood insurance if you're in a flood zone, arrange for utility cutovers, decide if you want a home protection plan, schedule movers, and perform the walkthrough. I will start with property insurance. If you have a mortgage loan, this will be required, but of course, even if you're an all-cash buyer, it is strongly recommended. With regard to flood insurance, if you have a mortgage loan and if you're in a designated flood area, your lender will require that you carry flood insurance. Otherwise, it's entirely up to you, but it is strongly recommended. You should arrange for the following utility cutovers prior to closing. For electric service, contact Florida Power and Light in Collier County and much of the southern portion of Lee County. Other portions of Lee County are served by the Lee County Electric Cooperative. Cable TV and high-speed internet are normally handled through Xfinity, unless your community has a different service provider. With regard to water and sewer, if you're closing in Collier County, the closing agent should take care of the change in billing for water and sewer. If you're closing in Lee County, I will provide you with detailed instructions. Regardless of the age of the property you wish to purchase, there are home protection plans that can protect your investment. I have an ongoing relationship with American Home Shield, and I can help you with the paperwork should you elect to engage this type of plan for your purchase. If you need a recommendation for a reputable mover, I can provide you with a list of companies that can manage a local, national, or international move, as well as your short or long-term storage needs. And finally, the walkthrough. Prior to closing, you're entitled to a walkthrough to ensure that the property has been maintained, that all repair items agreed to have been completed, and any furnishings included in the sale remain at the property. The walkthrough is generally performed on the day of closing. With regard to the completion of repair items, your building inspection company will likely provide for the inspection of these as an add-on service. If the confirmation of these repairs is complex, or if you simply want assurance of the completion of these items, you may engage this service and have it scheduled for the same time as our walkthrough. And now we move to the closing. Your closing agent will handle all of the title work and paperwork at closing. I will coordinate with them to ensure accuracy, and I will also review the closing statement prior to actual closing. I should note that many of my buyer customers choose to close remotely. This is very common, and your closing agent will accommodate you. If you close remotely and have repair items that are part of the contract, I recommend you engage the add-on service of your building inspector to confirm that the repairs have been made satisfactorily and according to code. As you are likely aware, the right to occupancy takes place at the time of closing. If agreed to by all parties, the buyer can request an early occupancy, or the seller can request a post-occupancy, but these should be for very limited periods of time. I have the contract amendments that address these situations should the need arise, and if the buyer and seller both agree to the terms. And now we move to our final section in transaction management, which covers post-closing activities. These may occur after closing, but be thinking about them now. First, we will cover becoming domiciled and homesteaded. If you become domiciled in Florida, you most likely qualify for the Florida homestead exemption. This provides important real estate tax benefits and asset protection. Please discuss this with your attorney and tax advisor. If you plan to take extended leaves from Florida, you will likely want to consider a reputable home watch service to check on your property while you're absent. I have an excellent list of quality home watch services from which to choose, or you can find your own. Most offer a wide range of services, and you can pick a la carte for just what you need. After your purchase, I can assist you with my list of preferred contractors, repair professionals, and other service providers. And after we close, I hope to continue to stay in touch with you. Many of my customers become lifelong friends. We can go to some of the local area activities or have lunch or dinner. Also, please let me know if there's anything I can do to ever help you, or if you need assistance with anything involving your new home. And finally, I pride myself on providing extraordinary service throughout the home buying process and beyond. If you have family and friends who want to move to our area, please tell them about me. I appreciate your referrals. Furthermore, if your needs ever change and you want to make a move, please let me know. I also provide exemplary service to home sellers, and I can help you find your next dream home. And that wraps up my presentation on step 8 of my buyer process, which is also the last video of this series. I hope that you have gained insight from watching these videos on my buyer process, and that it has helped you to understand how I approach a real estate acquisition when I work with buyers. If you have any questions about my process, or if you'd like to discuss your particular situation, please feel free to contact me at any time. My contact information is listed below on this screen. I'm grateful that you have joined me for this viewing, and as always, thank you for the privilege of your time.